Pokemon Sword and Shield are decent games, but what if I told you that I could spice it up by randomizing every single Pokemon, including their movesets and stats? Now with this version of the game, let's see if I have what it takes to complete a Nuzlocke and a randomized copy of Pokemon Sword. Also, if you have any ideas of videos you would like to see in the future, let me know in the comments. And now, with that all being said, I get introduced to the worst starting trio in this franchise, and now the three of them, I choose the least hideous one, Scorbunny. But because it's random, I actually receive an Azurill. Now, Azumarill is a really good Pokemon, except this Azurill won't evolve into a good one because of its ability Thick Fat. But it's alright, it's not like I chose this over, let's say, a shiny Giratina. But anyway, let's see how well it fares against Hop's Pokemon. Hop sends out a Bunnelby, and lucky for me, Azurill has Power Up Punch as a random move. So after 3 of those raising my attack, his Rabbit is done for. So now all that was left was his Jangmo-O, and it kinda just takes a beating lying down, so I win my first rival fight. Now it was time for my daily stroll through the woods to see this big guy, that then turns into this big guy, and after experiencing that, I could finally catch another teammate. And the first Pokemon I saw was just Shiftry, and after catching the goofy little guy, I head over to Route 2 and encounter one of my favorite starter Pokemon. Anyway, a couple Pokeballs later, and he was mine. Now it was time to get endorsed by the champion. And how do you do this, you ask? Well, first you need to beat up his younger brother, for a second time now. I send out Ivysaur, and Hop, of course, sends out a legendary Ice Horse. But luckily for me, Ivysaur had Fire Punch, for whatever reason. And with 2 of those, the Titanic Wrecker was down. Hop then sends out Ferrothorn, only for it to be one-shotted by Shiftry. Now, all that was left was his Diancie, and if it wasn't for an Oranberry and a critical hit, Shiftry would have been 6 feet under. But luckily I pulled through, and now I can officially begin my journey. Up next was the wild area, and I decided to count each individual area as a new encounter. So upon entering the rolling fields, I get a face full of Regidrago, and luckily for me, it stays in the ball. And another thing I'd like to know is how nice this Pokemon actually looks. I'll admit, in my opinion, Sword and Shield are my least favorite Pokemon games, but these games absolutely killed it when it came to designing Pokemon for the region. But anyway, in East Lake Axel, I finished up my wild encounters for right now by catching an Alolan Raichu. I then go and check into a hotel before getting interrupted by your average looking British person. Now normally I wouldn't talk about a random trainer fight, but this was no normal fight. This guy really thought he was slick out here with his shiny Keldeo, and after demolishing it with poison jabs, I casually fished up a legendary, and I faced Hop once again, but only this time he had a full party of 6, just like every other trainer for the rest of the game. His Pheromosa gets decimated by a Fire Punch from Ivysaur. His Duskull then falls due to a couple false surrenders from Azurill. Then Hop pulls another legendary from his ass, but luckily Ivysaur can tank a few hits from Fusion Bolts before knocking it out with poison jabs. But then tragedy struck when Hop's Kingura landed a critical hit, knocking out Raichu. Ivysaur made a return to avenge his fallen ally, followed up by Hop's Silvally getting destroyed by my Lugia. Then this bastard sends out yet another legendary, and at this point I might as well set up a legendary counter for him. As a matter of fact, sadly Shiftry wasn't a match for his Mew, leading to yet another death. Then, with one more U-turn from Regidrago, Hop was done for. All was not lost though, because on Route 3, I ran into another one of my favorite Pokemon designs from this region. I mean, just look at it, it's so goofy. I then walk into the Galar Mines, where I tried to pick up this shiny thing, but instead I run into Eternatus. So now I have a full party to take on the gym. Or so I thought. Because this region is based off the UK, it obviously has to have a ruler. And what would the UK be without Queen Elizabeth II? So obviously I have to battle her as my rival. She sends out Unpheasant, and after a couple rising voltages, her goose was cooked. Or should I say pheasant. Her Bagon gets hammered to death by Lugia. Now this wouldn't be a rival fight without some random ass legendary or mythical, so Genesect comes out. But luckily he gets cooked, so out comes Tapu Fini. Ivysaur tanks a Hydro Pump to finish it off with Poison Jab, and with 4 HP remaining, Azurill finishes off Drifloon with false surrenders, bringing me to face her final Pokemon, another fucking Tapu. So now it was time for Eternatus to make his debut, and yeah, that was to be expected. Luckily, I have Ivysaur, and after Lizzie's defeat, I caught an Electabuzz on Route 4 and evolved Azurill into Marill. So now with a team of 6, I can face Milo's gym. He starts out strong with his Zeraora, but my luck strikes again because his Zeraora has no damaging moves and gets swept by Regidrago. Then he sends out his Alcremie to explode on Ivysaur, taking away a measly 14 HP. Electabuzz then electrocutes Milo's Starmie, and Regidrago then burns his Tangrowth to a crisp. Now it was time to face his ace, Regieleki. And with a Dynamax legendary Pokemon, I was a bit worried, but then I saw how much damage it did against Ivysaur, and yeah. A couple poison jabs later, the first gym badge was mine. And in addition to the badge, I got to evolve my Marill into a Azumarill. On Route 5, I caught the nostalgic bait Pokemon, and after that, you can probably guess who was up my ass again. Not only did he have a Zapdos that took out my goat Ivysaur, but he also had a Volcanion that took out Electabuzz. And if that wasn't enough, he also sent out a Tornadus. My guy has cycled through 7 different legendaries at this point for the sole purpose of obliterating my Pokemon. And now I no longer have an excuse for me not to use the nostalgic bait Pokemon. I think it's fair to say that I despise this character. But just when I thought my luck ran out while fishing in Hulbury, I got reunited with an old friend. And now with a new team of Pokemon, I was ready to face Nessa. Her Dragonite falls to a couple Ice Fangs from Regidrago. Then her Thundurus falls to a couple Rock Slides and an Aqua Jet from Lugia. Lugia also Hammer Arms or Porygon 2 for another knockout. Now it was time for Dragapult's time to shine by one-shotting Nessa's Hakama. Then he knocked out her shiny Entei with Scorching Sands, and finally Dragapult cleaned up by trop kicking her Dynamax Rhyhorn for the second gym badge. In the Galarian Mines number 2, I know, very creative name, I caught a Magearna. Then I fought Old Lizzie for a second time, and to be brutally honest, nothing notable really happened. I kicked her Old English ass, and upon exiting the mines, I ran into this little guy. His name is now Ronald. Then I faced Marnie, who for some reason only had water types, so after my Dragapult had a field day of trop kicking Slowbro, I faced the fire type gym leader Kabu. But before I did, I also caught an Applin in his gym challenge. Kabu starts out strong with Xerneas, and I lead with Magearna. Xerneas strikes first, causing Magearna to pop her Oranberry so that she could land a super effective Belch on Kabu's reindeer. Then she dies next round, so Dragapult comes in to finish it off. Charizard took care of Wooloo and Cubfu with Flying Press, then Regidraco took care of Virizion with Ice Fang and took care of his Berserker with Magma Storm. Now here's where everything fell apart. Kabu sends out a Dynamax Celebi that ends up taking out Charizard as well as my very first Pokemon, Azumarill. After the Dynamax was over, Regidraco came out to knock out Celebi and win me the third gym badge. But after that massacre where I lost half my team, my next destination was the wild area, where I had to traverse through 6 different areas, which meant 6 new teammates. The first one was in North Lake Melodic with this Zeraora. And speaking of mythical Pokemon, my capture in the Monostoke Riverbank was a Mew. And to make a long story short, my next encounters were a Drifblim in Bridgefield, a Tyrunt in the Stony Wilderness, a Regieleki in the Giant's Cap, and finally a War Turtle in the Hammerlock Hills. And once I make it to Hammerlock, I do the side quest to get the Tart Apple and evolve Applin into Flapple. And Tyrunt evolves into the best fossil Pokemon ever, Tyrantrum. Then something stupid happens. You see, Hop is in his depression arc, because the queen told him off or something, I don't know. Anyway, the both of us get jumped by Brits. The one I fought had a Rillaboom, you know, something that a Tyrantrum with Oblivion Wing could handle. And here's the thing, because Hop was sad, he just refused to fight the other grunt, leaving me to face a shiny Rayquaza that killed my Dragapult. Even when I don't fight Hop, he still finds a way to fuck me. But luckily I found a replacement for it on the following route with this Umbreon. And I guess Hop overheard me talking shit about him because during this next fight he sends out not 1 but 2 Naganadels followed up by a Heatran, as well as a Suicune. But the more surprising outcome of the fight is that I actually won without losing a single Pokemon, so maybe the game is getting easier. Now, with nothing in my way, it was time to face B. Her Diancie is just like Milo's Zeraora. It didn't have any damaging moves, so it was a free kill for Regidraco. Then came out her Butterfree. I don't think I need to explain what happened. Then my Tyrantrum sets up her Wigglytuff with the classic Toxic and the Venoshock combo. Her Solgaleo, guess what, didn't have any damaging moves and just spammed spikes until Tyrantrum KO'd it. Hell, even Umbreon got in on this action by wiping her Alakazam off the face of the planet. So could this fight get any harder? The short answer is yes. The long answer is that her Crobat managed to outspeed and kill all of my Pokemon. Every single one. But I did have 6 Pokemon left over in my PC, so with my few remaining allies, I went back to face Crobat. At first, my best bet was to take down her Crobat with Blastoise, because he had Destiny Bond for whatever reason. And when that didn't work, I sent out Lugia to kill it with Icy Wind, until Crobat avoided it and knocked out Lugia, but then the GOAT Slowking came in with a Shadow Ball, ending Crobat's reign of terror once and for all, and I was rewarded with the 4th gym badge. So now, with only 4 Pokemon left, I had to stop Lizzie from tearing down some ugly ass mural. Straight off the bat, Driftbloom falls to yet another shiny mythical Pokemon, so Slowking came in to clean house yet again. And then yet another mythical Pokemon shows up. Oh boy, I can't wait for him to land a critical hit on Zeraora, so that I have to switch into Slowking to kill it again. Then she sends out Aggron, and out of everything that's randomized in this randomizer, abilities are not one of them. So there goes Zeraora, and with Slowking already in a bad spot health-wise, it sadly failed to Arctozolt, and all I had left was Ronald. Need I say more? Now, even though I lost, that doesn't mean I'm not going to try again in the future. If you want to see me beat this challenge, as well as all my other failed runs, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps it out. But anyway, thank you for watching, and have a great day.